Okay, so shall we begin, dear devotees? So nice to be with all of you.
Prabhu, I think I muted you by mistake. Sorry. You'll have to unmute yourself. I was trying to mute myself.
Okay, so is the audio people you can hear, right? Rangesh?
Yes, Prabhu, we can hear you nicely. Veda Sāra, Prabhu. Hare
Okay.
Krishna.
Harinam Sankirtan Yagya ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Nitai Gaura Pramanande. Hari Hari Bol.
We cannot hear you, Veda Sāra, Prabhu.
Sorry, Prabhu?
Hare Krishna.
No, I think we can hear him. Prabhu, yeah. I think most people are able to hear him.
Krishna Kirtana Gana Nartana Paro Premamritam Vanidhi Dhira Dhira Jana Priya Priya Karo Nirmatsaro Pujito Shri Chaitanya Kripa Bharo Bhuvi Bhuvo Bharavahantarako Vande Rupa Sanātana Raghuyugo Shri Jiva Gopalako Vande Rupa Sanātana Raghuyugo Shri Jiva Gopalako Nana Shastra Vicharanai Nipuno Sadharama Samsthapako Lokanam Hitakarino Tribhuvane Manyo Sharanyakaro Radha Krishna Padaravinda Bhajana Nande Namadaliko Vande Rupa Sanātana Raghuyugo Shri Jiva Gopalako Vande Rupa Sanātana Raghuyugo Shri Jiva Gopalako Shri Gauranga Gunarnana Vidho Shraddha Samridhyandito Papotapanrikantano Tanubhritam Govinda Ganamritai Anand Keshava Utvāpi Ganesha Karunaya Gopina Kanthasmito Gopi Bhavarasamrita Bhilahari Kallola Magna Moho Vande Rupa Sanātana Raghuyugo Sri Jiva Gopalako Pujat Kokilaham Sara Sagana Kirnesha Mayurakule Nana Ratna Nivadhamula Vitapa Shri Yukta Vrindavane Radha Krishna Mahar Nis Krishnam Radha Krishna Mahanisam Prabhajato Jivarthado Yomuda Vande Rupa Sanātana Raghuyugo Sri Jiva Gopalako Sankhya Purvaka Namagananativi Kalavasani Krito Nidrahara Vihara Kadi Vijito Chatyantha Dino Chayo Radha Krishna Gunar Smriter Madhurima Nande Nasamahito Vande Rupa Sanātana Raghuyugo Shri Jiva Gopalako Radha Kunda Tate Kalinda Tanaya Tire Chavam Sivate Premon Madhava Sada Sadasaya Drastho Pramattho Sada Gayanto Chakada Hare Gunavaram Bhava Vibhuto Muda Vande Rupa Sanātana Raghuyugo Sri Jiva Gopalako He Radhe Vraja Devike Chalalite He Nanda Sunokuta Shri Govardhana Kalpa Padapatale Kalindi Vane Kuta Goshanta Viti Sarvato Vrajapure Kedair Mahabifalo Vande Rupa Sanātana Raghuyugo Sri Jiva Vande Rupa Sanātana Raghuyugo Sri Jiva Gopalako Sri Shad Gosvāmī Ashtakam ki jai.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Prabhu. Before you get started, I would just like to do a quick introduction of Prabhu. I mean, all of us know Veda Sāra Prabhu is our temple president here at ISKCON Atlanta. And today he will be dealing with chapters 2 through 5 of the teachings of Lord Chaitanya. And apart from that, Prabhu, from a very young age, has been a part of the Krishna consciousness movement. And he's a very nice speaker with regards to Leelas and philosophy as well. So today we have the opportunity to hear from him. And we have very interesting topics today which deal with who is God and how we should approach him and asking very important philosophical questions in our lives. So today he will be walking us through these chapters. Also, a small announcement, a request from Prabhu as well was that he's going to make it really nice and interactive.
So can everyone turn on their video?
Yes.
If possible.
Yes. If everyone can turn on their videos, that would be nice. The second thing is whenever Prabhu wants to interact, you can definitely raise your hands and then we can call out your name and you can respond to Prabhu's question and we can take it that way. Hare Krishna.
Can we go to gallery view?
Yes, Prabhu.
Please. Okay, I'm learning how to do this.
Are you able to see the gallery view, Prabhu? Not yet?
For some reason, I'm not able to see it.
Okay. If you're on the laptop, you should see an option on top, on the right corner of the Zoom screen, which says speaker and gallery.
There we are. Okay, this is better. So, thank you all so much. Let us start with our Mangalacharan prayers. Om Ajnana-timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Sri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Anvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So, thank you, dear Vaishnavas. It is so nice to see so many of you. Nice to see some of your faces, Ranga Devi, Gaura Chandra Das Prabhu, Jai Kumar Prabhu. So, in celebration of the appearance of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu coming very soon, and all the devotees who I'm not able to see on the screen, thank you so much for giving me your presence. It is nice to be with all of you. So, in celebration of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's appearance, we are trying to see how we can get a little glimpse of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's intimate associates and the beautiful exchange that he has had with his devotees. And in particular now, for the last, I think, 3 weeks, our third week today, we are covering the teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to Sanātana Gosvāmī. Most of you have already heard the beautiful pastimes from our dear Adi Gadadhar Prabhu and Amarendra Prabhu. So I will perhaps touch on the teachings from a little bit of a different angle. And for me, this is a personal journey to study the teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So I want to see if we can have a little interactive discussion. Whenever you have any questions, you're welcome to raise your hands, and you can interrupt me and interject anytime during this discussion. I am not a big fan of having a monologue, one person talking and everyone listening. I'm normally, I enjoy more asking questions and getting and hearing feedbacks. So, teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, it is from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila. There's beautiful 4 chapters, I think it's almost 5 chapters, talking about the amazing teachings that takes place in this beautiful dialogue between Sri Sanātana Gosvāmī and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So I just want to bring you all up to speed since you have already heard all the pastimes, so I won't get into the pastimes, just to bring you up to the speed. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is doing his leelas, and Rupa Gosvāmī and Sanātana Gosvāmī, by circumstance and also partially by choice, they are entrenched in the service, in materialistic service of serving this great king, Nawab Hussain Shah. And interestingly, the reason I say circumstance, because their parents, Sanātana Gosvāmī's parents, Rupa Gosvāmī's parents, they were also involved in similar kind of services, ministerial services. So it kind of, the profession of working as a minister in the government was something that was somewhat passed down, just natural inheritance of a family lineage of serving in the government ministerial positions. So most of you already know that Rupa Gosvāmī had gone and he had left, and Sanātana Gosvāmī was stuck, and he was trying to figure out a way to, after meeting Mahaprabhu, he just could not, his heart was burning inside with his intense desire to be in the company of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So much so that he was mentally not present in his duties because his heart was already gone and it was yearning for the association of the devotees in Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So he, of course, came up with some beautiful excuses. You know, any excuse we need to give to serve Krishna, because as Srila Prabhupada would say, that the real principle is to remember Krishna. Smartavyam satatam Vishnu vismartavya na jatu chit. To always remember Krishna. Remembering Krishna means serving Krishna. Remembering Krishna does not mean we just sit and we think and remember Krishna. That is not remembrance. Remembrance means that we actually serve Krishna. So Sanātana Gosvāmī, his heart was not at peace. He came up with excuses that he was sick and he would not attend his duties in the kingdom. And finally, when the king, when Nawab Hussain finally found out that he was not being present in his at his work, then he sent some messengers to find out what's happening. And really what was happening is that he was completely immersing himself in the study of the Srimad Bhagavatam and immersing his consciousness deep into the pastimes of the Supreme Lord. And he was becoming more and more and more and more attached to Krishna's pastimes, to being with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and his material attachments are burning up to the point of non-existence. And to be in a situation where your material existence has no meaning, serves no purpose, then, you know, the next step, what happens is you're naturally moved out by the will of the Supreme Lord and also his intense desire to be with the Lord. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is waiting in Varanasi and spending his time at the house of Chandrasekhar Prabhu. And Sanātana Gosvāmī is making his escape plans. Beautiful stories are there of how he tried to bribe the security guard who was guarding him. And he was pleading with the heart of the security guard to please release him. And he even used this argument that, you know, I'm going to go to Mecca, because he wanted to get his sympathy. Even though Sanātana Gosvāmī gave him the job, he seemed to be a very loyal servant of Nawab Hussain Shah. So he wasn't having it. But when he presented the arguments of going to Mecca, then his heart started to soften. And then on top of that, offering him another bribe of his material wealth, that was enough to finally set him free. Of course, Sanatana Goswami also gave him a very beautiful logical argument to make sure that he would not be in trouble with the king. So in this way, Sanatana Goswami left the kingdom and he made it all the way to Varanasi. On the way to Varanasi, he met his relative Shrikant. And there, Shrikant tried to convince him that Sanatana, you look very disheveled. You've been walking. You know, those days they didn't have airplanes. And so he looked pretty disheveled walking such long distance. When he stopped at the house of Shrikant, then he was offered to take a nice shower, change clothes, shave. But he, in his heart, he did not want to waste a moment of time. Rupa Goswami actually explains this in the Nectar of Devotion, that when you reach the stage of bhava, then there is a stage, it's called avyartha kalatvam, which means you do not want to waste even a moment of time. That is one of the symptoms of someone who is on the platform of bhava. So you can see Sanatana Goswami's mood is already there. He didn't want to waste any time with his relatives. He didn't even want to shave and clean up. He just wanted to carry on. But because he was going on a journey, he was given a beautiful blanket to carry with him, just so that if he got tired, he wanted to rest, then he could use the blanket. In Bengali, it's called kata. In Sanskrit, they say kanta. In the 6th Goswami Ashtakam, you'll see kopina kantasrito. All they had was kopin and a piece of cloth, which was basically, kata is a quilt that is sewn by all the pieces of cloth that were of no other use. So they stitch up many pieces of cloth together and they make a quilt. So that is what a kata is. So that beautiful quilt is what they used to have, these two possessions, the Goswamis. So finally, when he finally made it to Varanasi, then he was waiting outside, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he could feel the heart of Sanatana Goswami. It is a very common spiritual principle that the Supreme Lord, He's situated in everyone's heart. And He knows the desires, and He knows everything that is happening in the heart of a devotee. He actually knows everything that is happening in the hearts of all the devotees. And the Supreme Lord even communicates to the hearts of the devotees. There is a word in Sanskrit that's called pashyanti. There's different levels of sound vibrations that we communicate with each other. These are called vaikari, where we have two organs moving and touching together create sounds. But the communication that the Supreme Lord, He has with His devotees, in Sanskrit the term is called pashyanti. You also see in the Brahma Samhita that Krishna is communicating in Lord Brahma, Tene Brahma Hridaya Adi Kavaye Muhyanti Ad Suraya. So the Supreme Lord communicates with the hearts of the devotees. So He could feel the arrival of Sanatana Goswami, and he asked Chandrasekhar Prabhu to please go and find the Vaishnava who was waiting outside. When Chandrasekhar Prabhu went outside, he did not see any Vaishnavas. He reported to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that there was a Muslim man waiting outside. Sanatana Goswami said, please bring him in. Sorry, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, please bring him in. And when Sanatana Goswami saw Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they embraced each other with so much love, and they bathed each other in tears of spiritual ecstasy. It's like when you are in connection with the Supreme Lord, your eternal Father, you have that deepest spiritual connection where every part of your being becomes united with the source of your being. So this is what happened. And then, beautiful 2 months of time that's spent in Jagannath Puri. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu sat with Sanatana Goswami. Imagine 2 months of non-stop beautiful association with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, where Sanatana Goswami, he humbly approaches Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and he offers him this beautiful series of questions. And if we look, the first thing that happens, the first question that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is asked by Sanatana Goswami. Rangesh, can you please read those beautiful Chaitanya Charitamrita verse? The first question, and then we'll discuss a little bit.
Yes, Prabhu. Just pulling the verse up. Ke ami kene amaya jare tapatraya iha nahi jani ke mane hitahaya. Who am I? Why do the threefold miseries always give me trouble? If I do not know this, how can I be benefited?
So let's just, one simple question, right? I used to really fall in love with the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan because they are amazing great Vaishnava saints. Whenever I think of the Goswamis in Vrindavan, and my mind immediately runs off to this beautiful verse of the 6 Goswami Ashtakam. Yaktva Turnamasesha Mandalapati Shrenim Sada Tuchavat. Beautiful verse. Is one of my favorite verses. So we see Yaktva Turnamasesha Mandalapati. These Goswamis of Vrindavan, they are Mandalapati. Mandala, like Navadvip Mandala. Mandala is a big area. They are Mandalapati. They are extremely materially wealthy. And Shrenim Sada Tuchavat. That they are able to give up all these material opulences as being so insignificant. Tuchavat. Shrenim Sada Tuchavat. So, the Goswamis of Vrindavan, Krishna has used them as very amazing examples, role models of how you're Mandalapati, you have all this material wealth. And Sanatana Goswami, who is considered to be one of the most learned and respected, that he is a minister in the kingdom of Nawab Hussain Saha. But he is humbly appealing to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Keami, Keno Tapatra. Who am I? And why am I going through these threefold miseries? So, very interesting lesson that I take from this is that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's associate here, Sri Sanatana Goswami, he is not showing any artificial humility. This is truly what is in the heart of Sanatana Goswami. And I have noticed in my life growing up in the Hare Krishna movement that many times we have been talked about the importance of humility. And so much so that we have learned to mentally and verbally be extremely humble. But humility is not an ornament of the mind. Humility is not an ornament of the intelligence. Humility is an ornament of the heart. And Sri Sanātana Gosvāmī, in these simple questions that I remember studying, I used to always try to understand this tremendous amount of humility that the Goswamis had. To give up everything as so insignificant, all this material wealth that the whole world chases after. To them, they're tuchavad. They're very insignificant. And after having all these exalted material positions, they have this humility to inquire about the simple principles of spiritual life. And this is what Sanātana Gosvāmī is teaching us. For 2 months, imagine this is only in 4 chapters of Madhya Lila. 2 months of teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, where Sri Sanātana Gosvāmī is humbly asking questions. And Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, he just puts it in 4 chapters. So that means, what I understand, is that the teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is extremely condensed. 2 months teaching condensed in just 4 chapters. So that means that every word, every sentence that Mahaprabhu is speaking, that Sanātana Goswami is speaking, it has the deepest meaning and it has the deepest source of spiritual inspiration that can give us the highest level of spiritual ecstasy, Krishna Prema. So this was my understanding of what is this humility that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Sri Sanātana Goswami is experiencing. I wanted to share this as my personal realization that in Krishna consciousness, I have realized that sometimes we may tend to go through a process. In English, they call it spiritual bypassing. I'm not sure if you have ever heard this term, but there is something called a spiritual bypass. Just like every city has a bypass, you can go bypass some things and go through the side. In our Krishna consciousness practices, and it happens in most spiritual practices and religious groups, where our goals are so high, our ideals are so high, that we forget to have a human experience. And we create a huge disparity of who we are, where we are in our personal spiritual journeys, by trying to latch onto something that is so high, such as this beautiful humility that we're seeing with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Growing up, I remember we used to try to touch each other's feet as a show of humility. Not as a show of true humility from the heart, but just an external show. So in this way, I remember many instances in our lives where we created a big disconnect between where we are as spiritual beings, Srila Prabhupada Nugas, where we are on the path of devotional service, and the goals that has been set up by Srila Prabhupada and our Vaishnava Acharyas like the Gosvamis in Vrindavan. They're so exalted. And we are very we take to heart that these teachings is where we need to be. But then in our own personal spiritual lives, we tend to sometimes forget that we're human beings and we have material human needs and physical needs and mental emotional needs, and we try to suppress them and try to latch onto something so beautiful that is high up there. And this reminded me of Srila Prabhupada's teachings, where Srila Prabhupada explains the importance of health, sadhana, and service. That in our spiritual practices, one thing that we have to always keep in mind is that our health has to be priority. 2 days ago, we lost a devotee in our congregation, Parameshwar Prabhu, and I was at his funeral. And very beautiful devotee, very, very senior disciple of Jayapataka Maharaj. He was in the same batch with Bhakti Purushottam Swami Maharaj. And somehow he was so dedicated to his family and serving and taking care of them that he has left this world. And sometimes as devotees, we may think that Krishna is there, everything is perfect, we have nothing to worry. So we should just carry on with our regular duties. Srila Prabhupada emphasized that we have to really take care of this body because this body is a beautiful temple of Krishna. And we need to take care of this temple. And we also have to take care of our minds and take care of our hearts by maintaining our daily, very strict spiritual sadhana. So in this teaching of Sanātana Gosvāmī, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teachings to Sanātana Gosvāmī, one of my biggest lessons that I took away is understanding what is true humility. True humility is really being authentic with who we are as living entities in this world and our responsibilities, our functional responsibilities as humans, as parents, as fathers, as mothers, as children. And then taking care of our spiritual responsibilities by focusing on our heart, by dedicating our time to our daily sadhana practices. So I wanted to go off on a little bit more of the teachings, but I didn't want to take up too much time. So I wanted to ask if anybody would like to share a realization about your spiritual practice during this time where you have been put in a very unique situation by Mother Nature, by Krishna's arrangements. So before we carry on to the next, I see Jai Kumar Prabhu. Can I put you on the spot? Please share with us something from your heart.
So in terms of, I can talk about my story of coming to Krishna consciousness, Prabhuji. How I came in. It was not easy because I was very successful in my material life. And though my family used to read Bhagavad Gita every day, I was just looking them from far and never recited a single verse. Then I came to, when I was in Mumbai, I was attending this Bhagavad Gita. We just saw a crash course on Bhagavad Gita. I thought, okay, that makes sense. We always have this crash courses. So I attended that. And I had to attend 3 times before I could actually get the essence and get connected. So it took me almost 2 years to realize that this is the right thing after first reading Bhagavad Gita. And after that, I really felt, that, yeah, this is what it is. This is how we should be leading our life. So I had started following 4 equity principles, and then started chanting. Then we give up onion, garlic slowly. Encourage my family to join with me, and my material hankering at the time, because in a multinational company you always have a ladder where you want to go one level, next level, always looking for that. Slowly it melted down, and I become very peaceful, with my whatever I had at the time. So I was feeling more, satisfied with what I had. I never thought of going further, and whatever came in life I just accepted that as Krishna's prasad. So my understanding, Prabhuji, is that Krishna conscious, coming to Krishna conscious, makes us realize, he helps us connect with our true nature and true, journey that we should undertake, rather than going here and there, moving into places, competing, trying to achieve material success and all that, which only derails us from our bhakti and sadhana. Even if I have seen devotees who are trying to ride in both the boats, they usually fail. So being in Krishna conscious, just one place, and just accept what comes in your life as a Krishna's mercy, which is going to help us in advancing in our, spiritual journey, is what my take is, Prabhuji. So this is my understanding so far, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Shrikant Prabhu, please share with us a realization about a spiritual bypass in your life of practicing Krishna consciousness.
Hare Krishna, Veda Prabhu. I'm still reflecting on the spiritual bypass, but I wanted to share my comments and realization around humility. I often struggle with the.
You can share whatever you want.
Yeah, I have often seen that people relate humility to not being assertive, to the extent that they try to be too soft, to the extent that they lose their individuality. So I'll just share a comment which I got a good understanding of humility, or at least there was an aha moment for me a couple of weeks ago. I was supposed to meet with a couple of my colleagues on one of the temple related activities. A couple of them didn't show up for that meeting. So I was pretty upset because I had canceled my golf tournament to be part of that meeting, and others didn't show up. So I didn't use a stern language, but I just let others people know that I was disappointed that others didn't come for that meeting. So one of my colleagues, who's from, she's a recent graduate from UGA. So she posed the question, which is, are you upset that people didn't show up for the meeting, or are you upset because they didn't put you at a higher priority for that conversation? So that really helped me think about it. She said, how can we react to the same thing with compassion instead of putting yourself at the center of the conversation? Then I realized that true humility means working for the larger purpose of the mission. It's not about what you do and how you feel. So you should be assertive if the mission is being compromised. But if you are upset because somebody didn't give you the value, then you are putting yourself at a higher pedestal, and that is the exact opposite to being humility. And the way she coached me to react to the situation was, she said, you should have let them know in a different way, which is, thank you for not coming. I understand you had other constraints, but if you had let me know that you had other priorities, we could have planned our time better. I said, that is true humility, because you have compassion, but at the same time, you're not putting yourself in the center of the conversation.
Thank you, Shrikant Prabhu. Okay, 2 more. Ranga, would you like to share?
I have to find the not mute button for a second. Thank you so much. That was a beautiful lecture. I've been really missing actually the Sunday feasts. It's really like, I don't know, been a little tough finding the association. And while we get together, you know, with the youth group, I think, you know, there's a certain sense of having someone more senior, you know, listening to someone more senior with more experience and, you know, a different point of view lecture every now and then. It's really great and really helpful. And I thoroughly enjoyed that. Took some notes on this spiritual bypass in terms of the showy humility. I've participated also in the finding of feet. I have seen other people do that. I've laughed to myself. I've thought, you know, like this, you know, to me, it could lead to true humility. I've always, in my daily life, I'm like, at work, I try to fake it till I make it. I might not be as smart or as experienced as everybody else, but I try to get there as soon as I can. And I was wondering in the process of sadhana bhakti, if that's not kind of a similar, you know, pathway. Sometimes we, you know, we practice, we get up early in the morning, we, you know, we practice cleanliness, we chant, we, etc. And then, you know, that those are all practices that are intended to like feed and nurture that seed of bhakti, right? So I'm wondering if, you know, all of these, you know, spiritual or humility bypasses, wouldn't they also ultimately lead to true humility?
It's a beautiful question, Rangadevi.
Thank you.
I'm tempted to shed some light on it, but I want to see if anyone else would like to shed some light on it.
Please do.
So humility, you know, let's where does it come from? Humility does not come from the mind. Humility does not come from the body. Humility does not come from the senses. Humility does not come from the intelligence. Humility is a natural propensity of the living entity. Humility is a byproduct of bhakti. So, can we fake humility? You can fake it. But can you make it? No. Because it is a transformation of consciousness that is defined as when you transfer your consciousness from the material to the spiritual, when you operate as your true self, eternal servant of Krishna, Jivera Swarupa Hoy Krishnera Nityadas. When you operate from that position, then there is absolute humility. Otherwise, there is no humility. So the spiritual bypass that I'm talking about is on all different levels that we have, not just in the area of humility, because we have such high ideals and we want to be there yesterday. And you know, our samskaras in our lives that have been presented to us by our family. Bhaktivinoda Thakur very beautifully writes how he was pampered and how they built up his ego.
Yes.
And all these years of his life that he has spent in being built to be somebody, to live someone else's dream, completely overshadow his true spiritual identity. And now he was crying to Gopinath, Gopinath, please, now that I have finally I've gained my consciousness, please help me out. This is a real humility, because humility we will never have in this world unless we are truly Krishna conscious, 100% operating as an eternal servant of Krishna. Everything else is a reflection of humility. It's a fragmental part of humility. And so can we fake humility? As long as you know you're faking it, you're not faking it. Because if you know that you're faking it, that means there is an acknowledgement that one has to be humble. And that acknowledgement will purify, because that is sincerity. That will purify the heart so that we can truly remain and act as humble servants of Krishna. Because it's not something that is that someone can give it to us. It is not something that we can intellectualize it. It is not something we can, mentally come up with a framework of becoming humble. I remember some time ago, I was talking to one of the senior Maharajas in ISKCON. And I asked this simple question. I said, Maharaj, how do you live with the fact that every time you walk around, people are just bowing to you? And I said, can you please explain to me this feeling that you have, all this respect and awe, and people just, in ISKCON is very common. You just bow. You see, you just bow. It's great. It's a beautiful cultural thing. It's a good body exercise. It's a good thing. Where is it really coming from? And he told me that it was actually suffocating. It was suffocating to be in a devotee community because there is constantly people bowing. The bowing is not something that is physical. It is something that comes from the heart. Bowing means that you surrender. Surrender means you have to follow their instructions. We say Srila Prabhupada ki jai, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, every day when we offer respects to all the devotees. But what does that really mean? If all the glories is to Srila Prabhupada, that means there is nothing for you. In Yajna, we do this swaha. Swaha a idam krishnaya idam na mama. Krishna, this offering is for you and it is not for me. This is what really bowing down means. Then we have to ask ourselves these questions. Are we really bowing down? So what's happening is that there is a mechanical process that is happening, and it is not going into the heart. We can bow down all our lives, but if it doesn't come from the heart, the real effect of humility, the real effect of bowing is not going to have its true impact in our lives. Because the real point of bhakti means a transformation of the heart. Transformation of the heart by removing all the coverings of material life. So, it's such a beautiful question. Can we fake it till we make it? We cannot fake it till we make it. We have to really acknowledge the fact that we're faking it. And that shows the sincerity, and that in itself will enable us to burn off this material coverings so that we can truly operate from our hearts. I've noticed that even in my relationships with people, I have started to, ask people real genuine questions. Like, who here can say the last time someone actually inquired about your heart? Raise your hand if someone inquired about your heart in the last 1 year. Wow, one person.
No.
2 people. Imagine a community of devotees who are bhakti yogis. Bhakti means love. Love is coming from the heart. And we have never taken the time. We rarely take the time to inquire about someone's heart. We are always inquiring, how are you doing? As if we care what they respond. And most of the times, how is work? How is business? How is family? It's always about things related to the mind and the senses and the intellect and about the body, and it's never about the heart. So in Bhakti Yoga, to me, Krishna consciousness really means when we truly inquire about each other's hearts. And only when we're able to touch each other's hearts, we'll be able to see what is humility. We'll be able to experience humility. We'll be able to imbibe the qualities of humility. So I've been actively trying. Every morning I'm doing my sanghas with the students at Georgia Tech. And then, you know, I have a class with the Dutch. I have a Dutch crew. Then we have a French crew, a German crew, and a Spanish crew on Zoom, and a Guyanese crew. And we are just now getting to try to understand what is Bhakti Yoga? What does Krishna consciousness mean to each and every one of us? What does it really mean? What it means to Prabhupada is not what it means to us. Theoretically, maybe, but I think the whole point of humility and the spiritual bypass is really, really trying to understand what does Krishna consciousness mean to me? So I don't know, Rangadevi, it's a very deep, beautiful question. I don't know if I was able to shed any light on it. Would anyone else like to add anything to it?
No, Veda Prabhu, thank you for sharing. It was beautiful and very practical. The two words which come to my mind is humility means having empathy and compassion for others to look at it from that perspective. So thank you for sharing. It's a work in process, but thank you.
Rangesh, is there? I think where class time is over. Is there any Q&As?
Yeah, I mean, you have a few more minutes. You have around 10 minutes. So you can probably, I was thinking, since we are on the topic, you could also probably lead into this topic of how to approach God with that attitude of humility. Or, you know, how is a humble person considered a wise man as well? I think these are the other two things that you can touch on relating to the topic we have today.
Yeah, you cannot approach God without humility. He's not going to show up. Because God only wants your heart. He doesn't want your mind. He doesn't want your senses. He doesn't want your intelligence. He's the least interested in it. He doesn't want our services. He doesn't want anything. He just wants our hearts. And humility, that's why Mahaprabhu, when he is explaining in the Shikshastakam prayers, Trinadapi Shunichena, Tarorapi Sahishtuna. You know, what is humility? More humble than a blade of grass. I mean, if we really meditate on that, what does it really mean to be more humble than a blade of grass? How much more humble can you get? A blade of grass has absolutely no identity. When you go to the lawn and you see billions and trillions of blades of grass, one blade of grass has absolutely no identity there. So basically, we have to completely eliminate our material identity. Unless we eliminate our material identity, we cannot relish Sudhanam. We cannot relish the pure holy name of Krishna. Because when you lose your material identity, then you have discovered your spiritual identity. Unless you give up your material identity, you cannot discover spiritual identity. And unless you discover spiritual identity, you cannot give up material identity. So therefore, Gopal Bhatta Gosvāmī in Narada Pancharatra, he gives us the two processes, Bhagavad Viddhi and Pancharatrika Viddhi. That means our sadhana, we have to focus on our material functional responsibilities. And then We have to focus on our spiritual life. If you analyze our life, majority of our life is Pancharatrika Viddhi. And only a small fraction of it is really just Bhagavad Viddhi. And how much of it is really Bhagavad Viddhi? Are we chanting our japa, sadhana? How much of it is really, really happening from our heart? How much of it is we're doing it out of duty? How much of it are we doing it because it feels good to us? It satisfies your senses. Do we chant to satisfy our senses, to quiet down our mind, to fulfill our material desires, so we can enjoy Krishna? When we stop in trying to enjoy Krishna and we take the equation out, that is what humility means, more humble than a blade of grass. And then we can approach Krishna. Then we'll be able to get his attention. And it's a very beautiful process, because Srila Prabhupada made it more easier if we just simply keep trying. Then his causeless mercy will come flowing. We are all Kripa Siddhi recipients. We are all here because of Prabhupada's causeless mercy. So acknowledging that beautiful benediction, the blessings that we have of Srila Prabhupada's causeless mercy. So this is how we can approach Krishna. Tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya. Pranipatena, we have to humbly inquire, humbly approach. Pariprashna, humbly inquire, and render devotional service, to serve. The process is very simple. All of you already know all of it, and all of you are already practicing. I'm just sharing my little 2 cents. Yes, we are ready for questions. Am I correct, Rangesh?
Yes, Prabhu. I just posted a message on the group. So anyone who has questions can raise their hands, and then we'll call out your name, and you can unmute yourself. Or if you want to even type out the question in the chat box, you can do that as well. So,
Or they can speak up.
yeah. As some questions are coming in, Prabhu, could you also just shed a little light on who is considered a wise man with relation to a person approaching God as well?
A wise man. Very nice. So, I don't know if we have time. Is there questions? Should we answer the questions first, or someone asked that question?
No, no one's asked any questions yet. So I was thinking, as people are thinking about it, you can just start speaking.
Okay. So we have to, in order to understand what is a wise person, we have to understand what is knowledge, what is intelligence, what is wisdom. And then once you understand what is wisdom, then you can understand what a wise man is. So knowledge is information that we gather in life through our 5 knowledge acquiring faculties, the Gyanendriyas, Sabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha, our 5 knowledge acquiring faculties. Then we are able to gather information. We go to school, we get knowledge, a lot of book knowledge, a lot of knowledge is out there. When you apply that knowledge, that is called intelligence. And when you apply that knowledge and you gain intelligence, because intelligence is required to apply that knowledge. And then comes wisdom, because now that you have applied it, you have something so substantial. And wisdom is generally when you're able to take something so big and put it in a sutra form. Just like Sanātana Goswami's teachings, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, he takes 2 months of Mahaprabhu's teachings and he puts it in 4 chapters. That is an amazing feat. Please try to write down 1 hour of dialogue with another person and see how much time you will spend on writing and documenting that. I'm talking about 2 months. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is able to put it in a very precise, concise format. That is what wisdom is. Means you have realized that knowledge. Through application, you have realized it, and that's what becomes wisdom. And someone who has wisdom is considered to be wise. So was that short enough answer for you, Rangesh?
Yes, well, thank you, Prabhu. So if there are others who have any questions, we still have a little time. Yes, Ranga Devi has a question.
Just because nobody else is asking anything, I don't want to cut into anybody's time. How would you say you're able to recognize true humility in another person?
The only way to recognize humility in another person is only if you're humble, then you can recognize humility.
Mm-hmm.
Without being humble, you cannot recognize humility. I mean, true humility in its true spiritual essence. I mean, just look at the simple fact. Sanātana Goswami sees Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and Mahaprabhu just looks at his blanket, the beautiful royal blanket. Mahaprabhu didn't even say a word. Spiritual communication is such a deep spiritual vibration that words cannot express that communication. Bhakti is a communication of the heart. Bhakti is not a verbal, the mechanics of communication in bhakti is not verbal. Words cannot describe what this pure spiritual transcendental love is. The love of the gopis in Vrindavan for Krishna cannot be understood by our material minds and our senses. Even the demigods can't figure it out. No one can figure it out. Narada Muni can't figure it out. Because that bhakti is so deep. That communication is so deep. And Vaishnava Acharyas, when we study the writings of the Goswamis, just by understanding their bhav, their real emotions, that is really bhakti. Prabhupada's purports are Prabhupada's spiritual ecstasy that he just pours out. Many of us, we are very busy studying, memorizing shlokas, the translations, but the real ecstasy is Srila Prabhupada's purports. That is where the real essence is. That is where he's really pouring out his heart. If we want to know what his heart is. So, yes, that is the way to recognize humility. By being humble oneself, we can recognize humility. So, Rangesh, I think everyone has enough of me today.
I think we have one question in the chat if you want to just take it up.
What is it?
So in difficult times such as what the world is experiencing now, and also in difficult times in our personal lives, it is difficult to understand why Krishna lets bad things happen, and also bad things continue to happen even amongst devotees. How can we understand this?
Who asked that question?
They're anonymous.
It's a very beautiful anonymous question. Actually, you know, when we look at it from the spiritual perspective, nothing bad ever happens in this world. Krishna has a beautiful master plan for everything and everyone. When we are not able to see Krishna's hand in things that are happening in this world, then we like to give it a designation. Because the human mind wants to give everything a label. He is nice, he is not nice, he's handsome, he's ugly, he's intelligent, he's not very intelligent, he's beautiful. You know, these are the creations of the human mind to provide designations. But once we look at it from the spiritual perspective, I mean, look at the residents of Vrindavan. And the demons are coming, attacking Krishna. It's just intensifying their love for Krishna. They're not thinking, oh my God, it's so bad. What will happen to us now? Why is Krishna doing this? Why is God doing this? It's just intensifying their love for Krishna. So everything in this world that is happening, it is so beautiful. If you look at what COVID has done, for example, it has intensified human relationships. It has intensified people's devotion for God. It has brought more people together. It is such a beautiful gift. It is given time for people to focus on their individual sadhanas. And companies have also figured out how to optimize this calamity, and they're making more profits than before because they can make you work extra hours now. You don't have to go anywhere. They can make you work instead of 10 hours, 12 hours, and you just keep working. So everyone is taking advantage of this beautiful gift. This calamity is actually a gift. Companies are benefiting. Now we have to just see how we need to benefit spiritually. How this time should be given to our hearts to nurture our love for Krishna within our hearts. So, why is this bad things happening? We just have to change the lens that you're wearing. If you're wearing a certain kind of lens, you just change that lens and you look at it from a different spiritual lens, and you will see it's so much beauty that is there in the world, especially during this so-called difficult times. So, yes, the shift is how we need to see what lens are we looking at the world from. If we change the lens, it'll become very beautiful. Because Krishna's creation is perfect and it's beautiful. There is no imperfections. Imperfections are in our mind and in our senses and in our intellect, not in our hearts. So if we look at it from the heart, look at it from spiritual perspective, there is no blemishes. So whoever that anonymous person is, thank you for your beautiful question. Any other questions, Rangesh?
Yes, so there's one more. The question is, what are your suggestions to help us transcend our morning chanting from mechanical daily act to strengthening our emotional relationship with Krishna?
Beautiful question. The question we have to ask ourselves, because I don't have an answer for you, because I do not have any answers, but I have a question for you that may help you to answer your questions, which is that you have to ask yourself, why are you doing this? Why are you chanting japa? Are you chanting because you're angry? Are you chanting because you're frustrated? Are you chanting because you're lonely? Are you chanting because your father just told you to do it? Are you chanting because you took a vow to your guru? You have to ask these questions. Why am I chanting japa? And then the second question is, what purpose does this japa serve in your life? If you ask the question, what is your purpose in life? Just by asking, what is your purpose and why are you doing your japa quality will increase. Because if your intention is material, you'll get material things just by doing japa. Sure. So you have to ask why. You know, the beautiful thing is that our whole life growing up, we ask questions, why mom, why dad, and they just tell you why, and then they get sick and tired of answering you, and they stop answering the why question, and then you stop asking this question why. Spiritual life only begins when you ask the question why. And the human possibility, it's only the humans that have the ability to ask the question why. Animals cannot ask these questions why. So we have this unique ability to ask this question why. And we should completely optimize by taking advantage of asking this question why to everything we do, to every human relationships, to every exchange, to every thought, and to every expression in our lives. You ask the why question, why am I doing this? What purpose does it serve in my life? And then I feel that if you ask yourselves this question, you will find this beautiful answer, because Krishna is sitting in your heart. He will give you all the answers you need. That is so personal and individual to you only. So, thank you for. Was there anyone else, Rangesh? Jai Kumar Prabhu, you had a hands up?
No, I'm just discussing with Mataji, saying that very beautiful explanation, Prabhuji. If you understand what is the why I'm doing it and what's the purpose that I want to achieve out of that, I think our chanting definitely will improve. So thank you so much for beautiful answer, Prabhuji. Really helpful. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Okay, Rangesh.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? Then we're done.
Yeah, it's a very short question. Maybe you can just answer it quickly. So, what is mind? Is it material? And how do I know if the mind is enjoying or the Atma is enjoying?
Oh, who's asking this question? Anonymous?
Shri. I don't know who this is, but yeah, this is Shri.
Okay, is the mind material or is the mind spiritual? It's a very beautiful question. And what was the second part of the question?
How do I know if the mind is enjoying or the soul?
Beautiful question. If the soul is enjoying, you wouldn't ask the question. Normally, materially speaking, the mind is the seat of all the emotions, thinking, feeling, and willing. So everything you enjoy in this world is happening in your mind. All the sadness that you feel, all the loneliness that you feel, all the anger you may feel, it is all happening in the mind. It doesn't happen in the heart. It's restricted to the mind. So, yes, whenever you are enjoying anything to deal with the senses and the sense objects, it is an enjoyment that is happening and taking place in the mind. Anytime you do activities that are transcendental to this body and to the material mind, which is from your heart, you will see that there is a overwhelming feeling of immense amount of humility and gratitude to Krishna. Then that is a feeling that is coming from deep within the heart. So there is a difference. all sensations that are derived from the sense objects, from the senses and their sense objects, it is felt and enjoyed in the mind, enjoyed and suffered in the mind. All spiritual exchanges, all spiritual byproducts are experienced all in the heart. And when you experience it in the heart, you can also experience it in the mind. You can also experience it in the intelligence. Because the heart has more neurons than your brain. Heart is the center of your existence. So therefore, bhakti means how can we engage in the service of the Lord from our heart? Rangesh, did that answer? Did I?
I hope so. It was a very nice answer, actually. And I think thoroughly comes full circle as to, like how we are supposed to serve or how we're supposed to approach God, which was the last chapter that we had to cover. And I think Shri, I don't know if it's Prabhu or Mataji, she is saying thank you as well for the answer. So we thank His Grace Veda Sāra Prabhu for mediating this class today. We hope to get more opportunities to hear from him as well. We'll probably have another session. Let me just share my screen for some of our announcements today. So next week, we actually have a very special guest taking over from where Veda Sāra Prabhu just completed today. We have His Holiness Giriraj Swami Maharaj, and he will be dealing with the forms and the opulences of Krishna. There is just a small change in timing, to adjust to where Maharaj is. He's in a different part of a country. So we're starting at 6:30 next week. So I hope everyone can just keep that in mind. We'll be sending out our material as well, with the updated timings. So please keep that in mind. Probably just for next week, we'll start at 6:30. After that, we have the festivals for the week. So all of you know, today on the auspicious day of Ekadashi, we got to hear about how we're supposed to approach God, what is humility and things like that. Ekadashi is one of these days which, we constantly try to absorb ourselves in the thoughts and services of the Lord. So it's wonderful that we got to hear about how we're supposed to engage and approach the Lord today. Tomorrow is Dwadashi. The fast breaking time is 7:30 a.m. to 11:06 a.m. Please keep that in mind. It's also the appearance day of Sri Jagadisha Pandita. 28th January is Sri Krishna Pushyabhisheka. 29th is the beginning of the Madhava Masa. And on 31st of January, next Sunday, is the appearance day of Sri Gopala Bhatta Gosvāmī and Sri and the disappearance day of Sri Ramachandra Kaviraja. Coming to prayers, as Veda Sāra Prabhu also mentioned, we lost a very senior devotee of the community, His Grace Parameshwara Prabhu. Also, let's pray for the health of a lot of devotees who have been affected by COVID, which includes His Holiness Jayapataka Swami Maharaj, Shiki Mahiti Prabhu, and Govardhan Leela Mataji. Shiki Mahiti Prabhu, I think, tested negative recently. That's the latest I heard. Also, Kalpa Prabhu, who was at the entrance of the temple all this while when the temple was open, serving devotees with prasadam and taking care of them. Gaurang Giridhari Prabhu, who has been responsible for all the deity darshan pictures we get every single day all through this quarantine. Govinda Harris, all of you know him. He's a nice kirtaniya at our community. Also, all the doctors who are fighting COVID on the front lines, and also those who have been affected by COVID. So let's just chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra for them 3 times, and then we will move on to the Narsimha prayers. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram, Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So today we have two children from the Sunday school who will be chanting the Narsimha prayers. They are Anisha and Anika. Anisha and Anika, over to you.
Namaste Narasimhaya.
Namaste Narasimhaya. Praladadadayine.
Hiranyakashyapurvakshaha.
Hiranyakashyapurvakshaha.
Shilatankanakalaye.
Shilatankanakalaye.
Ito Narsimha Parato Narsimha.
Ito Narsimha Parato Narsimha.
Yato yato yami tato Narsimha.
Yato yato yami tato Narsimha.
Bahir Narsimha Hridaye Narsimha.
Bahir Narsimha Hridaye Narsimha.
Narasimha Madim Sharanam Prapade.
Narasimhamadim Sharanam Prapade.
Tavatara Kamalavare Nakham Adbhuta Shringam. Lalita Hiranyakashipu Tanubringham. Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa. Jai Jagadisha Hare. Jai Jagadisha Hare. Jai Jagadisha Hare.
Tavatara Kamalavare Natha Adbhuta Shringam. Lalita Hiranyakashipu Tanubringam. Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa. Jai Jagadisha Hare. Jai Jagadisha Hare. Jai Jagadisha Hare.
Jaya Narsimhadev, Jaya Narsimhadev, Jaya Narsimhadev, Jaya Narsimhadev.
Jaya Narasimhadev, Jaya Narasimhadev, Jaya Narasimhadev, Jaya Narasimhadev.
Jaya Prahlad Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj, Jaya Prahlad Maharaj.
Jaya Prahlad Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj, Jaya Prahlad Maharaj.
Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada.
Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada.
Jaya Jaya Gurudev, 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev.
Jaya Jaya Gurudev, 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev.
Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol.
Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol.
Vigna Vinash Narsimha Bhagwan ki jai, Prahlad Maharaj ki jai, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Once again, thanking you all very much, and a big thanks to Veda Sāra Prabhu for mediating the session today. We look forward to seeing you all next week, and please keep attending. This is a wonderful series which goes all the way up to the Gaur Purnima. which is the appearance day of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Hare Krishna.